Federalist 72, Part 4. We'll start with paragraph 7. Would it promote the peace of the community or the stability of the government to have half a dozen men who had credit enough to raise themselves to the seat of the supreme magistracy, wandering among the people like discontented ghosts and sighing for a place which they were destined never more to possess? A third ill effect of the exclusion would be the depriving the community of the advantage of the experience gained by the chief magistrate in the exercise of his office. That experience is the parent of wisdom, is an adage, the truth of which recognized by the wisest as well as the simplest of mankind. What's more desirable or more essential than this quality in the governors of the nations? Where more desirable or more essential than in the first magistrate of a nation? Can it be wise to put this desirable and essential quality under the ban of the Constitution, and to declare that the moment it is acquired, its possessor shall be compelled to abandon the station in which it was acquired and to which it is adapted? This, nevertheless, is the precise import of all those regulations which exclude men from serving their country by the choice of their fellow citizens, after they have, by a course of service, fitted themselves for doing it with a greater degree of utility. Here he is, in a way, giving a hint of what happened during World War II. I've mentioned this before. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected as president in 1932. Had he only served 2 terms, he would have had to leave office in the middle of what was going to be World War II. He says, is it wise when you have somebody who is definitely loved by the people, is wise, is experienced, to all of a sudden say, no, you need to get up and leave and get somebody who might not be familiar with how things were? We know that Truman became president after FDR died. FDR was serving in his 4th term. Now, do you think if Truman had become president in 1940, whether he would do the same things that FDR did, whether he would be able to actually get American people behind this war effort? I have my doubts, but there are some people that might say otherwise. We'll just leave it at that. A fourth ill effect of the exclusion would be the banishing men from stations in which, in certain emergencies of the state, their presence might be of the greatest moment to the public interest and safety. There is no nation which has not at one period or another experienced an absolute necessity of the services of particular men. In particular situations, perhaps it would not be too strong to say, to preservation of its political existence. How unwise, therefore must be every such self-denying ordinance as serves to prohibit a nation from making use of its own citizens in the manner best suited to its exigencies and circumstances, without supposing the personal essentiality of the man. It is evident that a change of the chief magistrate at the breaking out of a war or any similar crisis for another, even of equal merit, would at all times be detrimental to the community, inasmuch as it would substitute inexperience to experience and would tend to unhinge and set afloat the already settled train of the administration. So see, this paragraph is actually directly talking to what I was talking about, FDR, World War II. Here you have somebody that people admire, he's got experience. Would it be wise to get him out of office and then put somebody else in office that's not experienced at all? A fifth ill effect of the exclusion would be that it would operate as a constitutional interdiction of stability in the administration. By necessitating a change of men in the first office in the nation, it would necessitate a mutability of measures. See, again, it's that word mutability, something that he doesn't like. None of Publius' authors like, because you cannot count on something long term. It mutates, it changes, it's not stable. It is not generally to be expected that men will vary and measures remain uniform. The contrary is the usual course of things, and we need not be apprehensive there. Not be apprehensive. There will be too much stability, while there is even the option of changing. Nor need we desire to prohibit the people from continuing their confidence where they think it may be safely placed, and where by constancy on their part they might obviate the fatal inconveniences of fluctuating councils and a variable policy. So again, when you change administrations, a lot of members of administrations change. So this is going to be, in middle of an emergency especially, it will be awful. So that's what he's reminding us of. There are some of the disadvantages which would flow from the principle of exclusion. They apply most forcibly to the scheme of perpetual exclusion. But when we consider that even a partial one would always render the readmission of the person a remote and precarious object, the observations which have been made will apply nearly as fully to one case as to the other. The next paragraph. What are the advantages promised to counterbalance these disadvantages? They are represented to be, first, greater independence in the magistrate. Second, greatest security to the people. Unless the exclusion be perpetual, there will be no pretense to infer the first advantage. But even in that case, may he have no object beyond his present station to which he may sacrifice his independence? May he have no connections, no friends for whom he might sacrifice it? He may sacrifice it. May he not be less willing by firm conduct to make personal enemies when he acts under the impression that a time is fast approaching on the arrival of which he not only may but must be exposed to their resentments upon an equal, perhaps upon an inferior footing. It is not an easy point to determine whether his independence would be most promoted or impaired by such an arrangement. So the two benefits that they say we will have by not allowing the president to run again for office, says those are bogus. They are not good at all. The next paragraph, as to the second supposed advantage, there is still greater reason to entertain doubts concerning it, especially if the exclusion were to be perpetual. A man of irregular ambition, of whom alone there could be reason in any case to entertain apprehensions, would with infinite reluctance yield to the necessity of taking his leave forever of a post in which his passion for power and preeminence had acquired the force of habit. So if somebody is habitually ambitious, when they get in the office and they taste that power, says sometimes if you want to ask them, no, you cannot run again, step down, he says, actually, ambition might get a better part of him, and you never know, but have somebody that wants to usurp power and stay in power. If he had been fortunate or adroit enough to conciliate the goodwill of the people, he might induce them to consider as a very odious and unjustifiable restraint upon themselves a provision which was calculated to debar them of the right of giving a fresh proof of their attachments to a favorite. There may be conceived circumstances in which this disgust of the people, seconding the thwarted ambition of such a favorite, might occasion greater danger to their liberty than could ever reasonably be dreaded from possibility of a perpetuation in office by the voluntary suffrages of the community exercising a constitutional privilege. He says also, what if this president has become popular and he actually plays on people's emotions and says, people, look, I've done so much good for you. They're going to kick me off the office. So he says he can create problems if he's got actually a group of people that really think that he should serve another term. So he plays with their passions, and you never know, we might have chaos. In the very last short paragraph, there is an excessive refinement in the idea of disabling the people to continue in office men who had entitled themselves, in their opinion, to approbation and confidence, the advantages of which are the best speculative and equivocal, and are overbalanced by disadvantages far more certain and decisive. So the system we've proposed, the fact that the president can run for office again, a second time, a third time, he says this has much more advantages than disadvantages. And he hopes to have proven that to us.